ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नम ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So welcome back to our Saturday and Sunday series on exploring Raganuga Bhakti. We have been discussing the practice of a Raganuga Bhakta. One who is on Raganuga Bhakti, what are the practices he takes up? And as we were discussing in the last class and to the previous last to last class, that Rupa Goswami only in 3 verses mentions the practice of a Raganuga Sadhaka. The first one verse, which we discussed quite elaborately, mentions 4 elements. I'll just show the slide so that we are clear about it. The first verse, that is 294, shows 4 elements, essential elements. That is Krishna Swaram Janam Chasya Preshtam Nija Samihitam Tat Tad Kata Ratas Chasho Kuryat Vasam Vraje Sata. Remembrance of Krishna and the day devotees based on his own mood, and based on those moods, similar kathas, and then residing in Vraj, either physically or mentally. Yesterday we saw the next verse, which spoke about the second verse, which speaks about the practice of a Raganuga Bhakti. Sevaka sadhaka rupena siddha rupena chatrahi tad bhava lipsuna karya vraja lokanu srata. So we saw quite briefly what is the sadhaka deha and siddha deha. So there are 2 elements or 2 aspects of practice of Raganuga Bhakti. One is the sadhaka deha. He follows acharyas like the Rupa Goswami. And in his siddha deha, based on his mood, he follows the eternal associates, and especially like Rupa Manjari. So the Mahaprabhu's followers or the devotees in Braj Leela, they have two identities in Braj Leela and Chaitanya Leela. So Rupa Goswami has the identity in Chaitanya Leela as Rupa Goswami, and in Krishna Leela he is a Manjari, Rup Manjari. So both externally and internally we develop, we do this practice. And yesterday, quite in detail, we went into this discussion, many points from Shuddha Bhakta Chintamani. So physical body is the material body, say like a kapha, we follow the conduct. This should have been here. We follow the conduct given by Rupa Goswami and the 64 Angas, and we, follow the acharyas in the entire Guru Shish Parampara. And in the Siddha body, the identity as a gopi or a cowherd or mother, we follow the conduct of the Vraja residents, and especially the acharyas who are there in the Krish Leela as Manjaris. So we follow Rupa Goswami in the Sadhaka Sharira, in the Siddha Sarir, we internally follow Rupa Manjari. So this is quite, you can say, a very internal meditation and very confidential meditation, which, as the heart gets purified with the guidance of the spiritual master and the Mahabhagavats, slowly with the internal purification from these 5 stages of Smaran we saw, we slowly progress from Nishtha to Ruchi to Asakti, and there is initial just general appreciation, then specific appreciation, then specific mood is developed, and then we would like to follow specific, gopi, and then we start, in our internal meditation, start contemplating and doing services also. And then further, after Asakti comes the Bhava stage, where actually our Siddha Deha or the spiritual body is revealed. And then we attain Sampati Dasha, that is Prema. So this also yesterday quite in detail we discussed. The third verse which describes the practice of Raganuga Bhakti is this, which we yesterday discussed. Shravanut Kirtanadini Vaidi Bhakti Uditani tu Yani Angani Chutani Atra Viggenyani Manishibi. So here, Rupa Goswami says the discriminating practitioners, Viggenyani Manishibi, should accept the Angas, Tani to Angani, which were mentioned in Vaidhi Bhakti, Yani Vaidhi Bhakti Uditani, such as hearing and chanting, Shravana, Utkirtana, Adini, as the Angas of Raganuga Bhakti. Atra means here. So they should accept the same Angas which are already Rupa Goswami, who has mentioned it in Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, the 64 Angas. But here in Raganuga Sadhaka, he will be more focusing on hearing, chanting, and remembering, and he will be selective about choosing the limbs. So we saw Vishwanath Chakra Thakur's brief commentary and how even if he, neglects some procedures or neglects some angas to perform, there is no loss. 2 verses we saw from the Bhagavatam as the proof. Now today we will be discussing a little detail about this third verse which speaks about the practice of Raganuga Bhakti from Ragvartman Chandrika very briefly, and then again from Shivaram Swami Maharaj. So let us discuss from Ragvartam Chandrika. So तद एवं वाक्य द्वयेन स्मरणम ब्रजवासम च ukta. In this way, the first 2 verses quoted from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu describe the subject matters of Smaran and Brajavas. So here Vishwanath Chakra Thakur is speaking about those previous 2 verses, 294 and 295. Shravanadini apya aha Shravanut kirtanadinitya Guru Padashrayadini tu ape akshepa labdani. The third verse, now we are discussing the third verse, 296, discusses hearing and other limbs of sadhana. Shravanadini Apye Aha. Shravanut Kirtanadani. One should follow Shravan. Shravana Adini. Adini refers to Shravana following with Kirtan and other limbs of Bhakti, meaning all the 64 limbs. Guru Padarashray Adini, beginning from accepting shelter at the lotus feet of the spiritual master. So, it is a big misconception that one who is at the stage where he's qualified to practice Raganuga Bhakti, he is lax or he doesn't practice the limbs of Vaidhi Bhakti. In fact, he practices uh, more strictly and more intensely. And it is mentioned, the first limb in Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti is mentioned, Ado Guru Pad Ashraya. First, we should take shelter of a spiritual master. So, beginning, so from taking shelter of a spiritual master, so all these limbs, 64 limbs, he should practice, but definitely based on his taste, he might, neglect the secondary limbs and give primary focus on the primary limbs. That is there. Tani vina vrajaloka anu gatya adikam kim api na siddhet iti ato manishi vir. Apart from this practice of hearing, chanting, and so on, which is aimed at emulating the mood of Rajvasis, Tani Vina means apart from Vraja Loka Anugat Adikam means to follow in the footsteps of the Vrajasis. Kim api na siddhet, no other sadhana is capable of bestowing the desired fruit. To emphasize this point, the word Manishibi is used. Manishibi means the discriminating devotees. So without, taking up these two practices, we just cannot attain perfection. So this is a very important point Vishwanath Chakra Thakur is pointing out. Iti manishaya vimrasheva sviya bhava samuchittani evatani karyani na tu tad viruddhani. So another important point he's saying, this means that intelligent persons, Manishibi, will use their power of discrimination. Manishibi means one who has controlled his mind. Man means the mind. Isha means one who is a control of the mind. So definitely one who is qualified to practice Raganuga Bhakti, he is at the stage of Nishta where he has got sense and mind control. So that is why the word Manishibi is used. Manishaya, what he says, Vimrishayava. Vimrishaya means he deliberates, he contemplates to follow the limbs of Bhakti that are favorable to their moods. Sviya Bhava Samuchittani. Samuchittani means which is favorable. It is essential to avoid following anything unfavorable or that which can hinder the appearance of Bhava, the first rays of sun of divine love. Tani karyani na tu tad viruddhani. So whatever is favorable according to his mood, which is very much clear to him at that stage, those limbs which are favorable to his mood, he will, take up that. And which are not favorable, he will avoid it so that the appearance of bhava can happen. So this is how in one text, one portion of text of 11C, Vishwanath Chakra Thakur mentions. Now, in Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani, Shivaram Maharaj has given some more details. So let us go into that. Rupa Goswami says that the second eternal aspect of spontaneous service in practice is the performance of regulative devotional activities. So in Raganuga Bhakti, we perform also, the regulative devotional activities. And this is the verse we already saw that. This verse makes clear that the often mentioned expression spontaneous devotion does not depend on the rules and regulations of scripture, is not a rejection of regulative devotional service. Rather, it accepts that greed, not faith in scripture, is the dominant impetus for Raganu Bhakti. So it is greed which is impelling him to go towards his goal. And that greed pushed by that greed. He wants to perfect his life, but he has to, study the scriptures. As Vishwanath Chakra Thakur had mentioned, somebody wants milk to relish the nectar of milk, then he has to go to a knowledgeable person, how to get a milk, how to, feed the grass, and how to have a calf, and then only you can have milk. So he will refer to the scriptures, and especially this third verse is mentioning about following the limbs of all the Vaidhi Bhakti, which are there, 64 limbs. Thus, devotees who truly practice spontaneous devotion do not reject the items of regulative practice, especially the important ones such as chanting Hare Krishna, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, and worshipping the deity. So they will practice these limbs with more intensity and more, with more concentration, more focus. The truth is quite the opposite. These activities are their life and soul. They are like their prana. They are attached to chanting. They are attached to deity worship. So there are a very deep attachment. I know one very senior devotee who is in Vrindavan. He is so attached to doing the deity worship, although he goes for a long preaching tour for 15 days, but 15 days he has made a vow that in a month, 15 days, I'm going to do deity worship. And he never misses the deity worship. And that to the early morning deity worship, he takes up that service. So, like that, they feel that those activities are their life and soul, and they cannot live with that, live without it. Machitta, matgata, prana. They are like their prana. Foolish are those who, in the name of spontaneous devotion, give up these Krishna conscious acts. In fact, one should avoid the company of such devotees because their advice and influence can divert even sincere practitioners from the true path of Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, Prabhupada is saying this. As I was giving you the example that once I was traveling in a train to Vrindavan, and one boy whom I met who was in touch with some sadhu in Vrindavan, he was telling, just absorb yourself in Sparan, don't chant, just remember Leela Sparan. But it requires tremendous purity of the heart for that. And those who, are, carried away by such statements, who don't practice the limbs of devotion, they are deviating. So that's why we should be very careful when we are in company of such devotees. So we should always take the guidance of senior devotees. Spontaneous devotees never neglect regulative practices, but they concentrate on those items of devotional service that further induce meditation on the Vrajvasis of their choice. So they further concentrate on those specific items of devotional service which help us to develop that mood, what they have, realized through purification, through the mercy of Guru and through the mercy of Krishna. For instance, they do not give up hearing, but spend more time hearing the particular topics that nourish their serving mood. So they become very specific about their hearing according to their mood. Devotees attracted to loving exchanges between Krishna and the cowherd boys read books describing the Gopas. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, maybe after 12th chapter, are the pastimes of Krishna with the cowherd boys when they go for grazing. So they are attracted to the Sakyaras. So they will relish, these pastimes of Krishna from the Bhagavatam. It is said, I just recently heard that, we know Saka, Shuddha Saka, Kare Skanda Arohan, Tumi Kona Bada, Ami Tumi Sama, So this is the mood of Raj Bhakti. So recently I was just hearing one lecture, and when Krishna and Balram entered Mathura, especially the Kamsa's arena, wrestling arena, and they killed, Chanur, Mushtik, and so many other demons. The elephant, Kualapad, was killed. And at last, Kamsa was also killed. We know actually Krishna jumped where Kamsa was sitting on a high raised platform, and he actually punched him in his head, and dragged his body all the way. And even Devaki and Vasudeva were sitting there. They were also horrified. Oh, who is this personality? He's the supreme. But the Sakas, some of the Sakas are also from Braj had gone along with Krishna, and especially Sridhama was there. So Sridhama was not at all fearful. Sridhama went towards Krishna and he kept his hand on his shoulder and said, "Arey, what great, you killed this wrestlers. In our wrestling match, I defeat you, and you have to carry me on my shoulders." So that was the mood of Sridhama. Sridhama did not have this Aishwarya knowledge of Krishna, so is so much attracted to his Sakyaras without the Aishwarya Gyan. So he took it, he was absorbed in that Sakya Ras, Sridhama, and he's, you know, uh, taunting Krishna in one sense. And Krishna is relishing that loving exchange, friendship of Sakya Ras. And, whereas others were horrified seeing this scene. So these kind of wonderful pastimes, those who are attracted to that mood, they read these wonderful narrations which are there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Devotees following the goddess of Raja read about the gopis' special love, services, and moods. So this recurs to Vrindavaneshwari, that is Srimati Radharani. At the same time, devotees rejoice in hearing Krishna's pastimes with all the Vrajavasis, despite their own aspirations to become followers of a particular associate of the Lord. So it's not that, we will only read 10th canto this portion and not other portions. We will hear all the pastimes. In fact, in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, first 40 chapters are Vrindavan pastimes. There is also the Mathura Leela, and quite elaborate is the Dwarka Leela. So it doesn't mean that we will not read the 10th chapter later, chapters, especially with the Dwarka Leela. And there is the 11th canto also. And there is a 12th canto. So we have to read all these, but we hear these other pastimes or read these pastimes, but we are having our own aspirations to follow particular associates, and we keep that special and confidential. For instance, followers of the gopis eagerly take shelter of the gopas as Rupa Goswami does of Subal. So it's not that those who are attracted to the gopi mood, they will not hear or they don't appreciate the gopas. No, here is an example of how the gopis, followers of gopis, also take shelter of the gopas. And Rup Goswami is giving this verse. Subala Vallava Varya Kumarayor. O Subal, you are the intimate friend of the son and daughter of the best of the Gopas in Braj. Daitya Marma Sakas Twam Asi Vrajaye. Your Daitya means very dear friend. Narma Sakas. Narma Saka means your very dear friend. Please be merciful and introduce this unhappy person to your two friends. Iti tayo purato viduram janam shanam amum kripaya adya nivedaya. Nivedaya means I'm praying to you that you mercifully introduce this unhappy person, that is Rupa Goswami, to your two friends. So the two friends refer to Radha and Krishna. So this is how Rupa Goswami is praying. So we need, devotees are quite matured, those who are practicing at that stage, and they are not fanatic, that I'll not hear these pastimes. Of course, there are higher levels and moods, but at least in the sadhakas, there is no such fanatism. There is high level of maturity. Spontaneous devotees approach deity worship in a similar mood. So let us see how spontaneous devotees approach deity worship. Although devotees never give up their service to their worshipable deities, their mood in worship changes along with their increasing absorption in Braj Bhakti. Instead of thinking how to dress the deities of Radha and Krishna according to the rules of Archana, they dress them while thinking about how the Vrajvasis do it. So this is how they follow the Vrajvasis in one sense. This does not mean that they concoct new modes of dress for Radha and Krishna, however. So this is also another extreme we should, very much understand. So if you remember, I told the example of how deity worship, when Indra came and offered his prayers after after the Govardhan Leela, then Indra did the Abhishek and, established that you are the real Indra, Krishna. And after the Abhishek, the Aarti was performed by all the Devas. And they did it in a very Aishwarya mood, with all the paraphernalia from the heavenly abodes, the huge conch shell and the charmer, all from the higher planets. And Krishna was thinking, when this will get over and I can go and play with my friends. And then later on, when the Devatas were going back in the sky, the Gopas came and saw Krishna and saw all this paraphernalia, and they took all this paraphernalia very spontaneously with pure affection of a friend. They were doing this worship. And the Devatas saw this scene and they were stunned. My goodness, what is the love of these Brajvasis? So they were doing in Aishwarya Bhav to Krishna. Oh, Krishna is the supreme. But the Gopas, they were, worshipping with spontaneity to Krishna out of pure love. So there is a lot of difference. So similarly, devotees who are in this Raga Marg, who are Raganuga sadhakas, they, while dressing the deities, oh, how Krishna, the friends of Krishna dress Krishna by, putting a lot of flowers in the forest, and they put the turban and then they put the flute. So how they must be doing dressing of Krishna. So like that, this is the mood of a Raganuga sadhaka. Vishwanath Chakra Thakur adds submission to spiritual master Vishrambena Guru Seva to the list of indispensable items of devotion. So we saw that Vishwanath Chakra Thakur, not only that, all the Angas and Ado Guru Padashray also he says. In other words, as disciples advance on the path of spontaneous devotion, they never minimize or reject their preceptors' instructions. So as they advance, they more follow the spiritual master. In addition to seeing their gurus as servants of Lord Chaitanya's mission, they begin to see them as servants of Radha and Krishna, as expressed in 5th and 6th verses of Sri Guru Ashtakam. So their understanding of Guru Tattva and the Guru's position, is becomes more elevated. Sakshat Dharitvena Sri Radhika Madhava, your Madhurya Leela, Pratishana, Pratishana, Aswadan. The spiritual master is always absorbed in serving Radha and Madhav, and Pratishana, every moment he's absorbed like that. So this is, they start contemplating on these verses of how the spiritual master is engaged not only in the mission of preaching, but internally in serving Radha and Krishna. Raganuga Bhaktas retain the primary items of devotion, but they are selective about the secondary ones. So this I told, what is favorable to their mood, they will, focus more on that, and they might, be selective about the secondary ones. So, but the primary ones, they will follow meticulously, they will follow. They do not cultivate non-essential items of devotion once part of their regulative life that no longer serves the cause for spontaneous devotion. This discriminate attitude, something that must be employed with care, reflects the devotee's surrender to their chosen mode of service. Anukulyasya sankalpa. They are particular, they are not choosy about it. In this way, spontaneous devotees may give up things such as ritualistic hand gestures, mudras, branding the body with signs of Vishnu, or meditating on Krishna's Dwarka's pastimes. Now, it's interesting here, although Maharaj is explaining this, and even in the Acharya's commentaries it is mentioned, Srila Jiva Goswami has written what is called as the Gopal Champu. The Gopal Champu is the 10th canto commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's not exactly a 10th canto commentary, but it is a pastimes of Krishna, all in Vrindavan, Mathura, and Dwarka. But Srila Jiva Goswami has explained these pastimes from a Vrindavan centric viewpoint. How the gopis or Nanda Maharaj, in fact, Krishna himself and all the Vrajvasis are hearing Krishna's pastimes narrated by two exalted devotees, Madhukanta and Snigdhakanta. Madhukanta and Snigdhakanta, just like Love and Kusha, narrated Ramayana to even Lord Ram directly, and Lord Ram was absorbed in hearing it. So similarly, Madhukanta and Snigdhakanta are supposed to be Nalakuvar and Manigriv, who had witnessed the pastimes and got Krishna's mercy and attained Prema Bhakti. So they are narrating to the assembly of Rajvasis entire Krishna's pastimes from birth to killing of all the Asuras to going to Mathura and then Dwarka. So the Brajvasis are hearing Krishna's pastimes of Mathura also and Dwarka, but they are from Vrindavan point of view, from Vrindavan centric point of view. So even these other pastimes, if we see from a Vrindavan perspective, we can still relish it. And Gopal Champu is such a wonderful composition of Srila Jiva Goswami. So they don't meditate on Dwarka's pastimes. This is very important for those who are Raganuga sadhakas, because Raganuga sadhakas follow Vrajvasi Janadishu, as it was mentioned. Vishwanath Chakra Thakur elaborates on how devotees cultivating spontaneous devotional service determine which practices to select. So they are very particular of which practices to select. And Vishwanath Chakra Thakur in his Raga Vartma Chandrika has mentioned it, and Maharaj is quoting that. He divides the activities of bhakti into 5 categories according to how they affect the spontaneous mood, how they affect the bhava. So this is there in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu Bindu. Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu Bindu is a commentary or a short work on the entire Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu by Vishwanath Chakra Thakur. In fact, even in Ragvartman Chandrika also he has mentioned this. Things composed of bhava, bhava maya, it is called. Maya means composed. This is first categorization. Second, things related to bhava, bhava sambandhi. Sambandhi means related. Things favorable to bhava, bhava anukul. Those not incompatible with bhava, bhava viruddha, bhava viruddha. And things opposed to bhava, bhava pratikul. So these are the 5 categories. Based on one mood, these 5 categories are things composed of bhava, things related to bhava, things favorable to bhava, things unopposed, and which are incompatible. Not incompatible. They are not incompatible. So it's like almost like neutral, you can say. Composed of bhav refers to the 4 primary mellows: Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. So this is Bhavamay. So somebody who has a Vatsalya mood, so he will be more attracted to the childhood pastimes of Krishna. The Pushti Marg, which is the Vallabh Sampradaya Marg, they worship in fact the deities of Bal Gopal only. So because they are more attracted to the Vatsalya pastimes of Krishna. So this is composed of that bhava. So that is bhava maya. Devotees cultivating spontaneous devotion are drawn to one of these service moods, and every activity they perform is saturated with the flavor of that rasa. So it is, saturated with that bhava maya. By related to bhava, that is bhava sambandhi, Vishwanath Chakra Thakur means the primary limbs of devotion, such as chanting, hearing, remembering Krishna's pastimes, and serving the spiritual master. So this is Bhava Sambandhi. So chanting, hearing, remembering are all related to his mood to develop that Vatsalya, Bhavamay mood. are indispensable because they help form and mature a devotee's spiritual disposition. So these are bhava sandhiti and they are indispensable in one sense. 1 second. Maybe there is some problem with the connection. You have any questions, you can always raise your hand and we can take it up anytime. Give me a minute. Yeah, it's connected. Okay. Yeah, we were on this. So these are indispensable. So they are all bhava sambandhi and they cannot be neglected. Then there are related practices not indispensable but favorable. Okay, Srivas Pandit Prabhu, are these the types of bhava? No, this is a misconception. There are five, rasas: dasya, sakya, vatsalya, madhurya. Sorry, shanta. Shanta is not there actually in Golok Vrindavan. Uh, there are these four primary rasas where there is reciprocation. There is dasya, sakya, vatsalya, and madhurya. So bhava here means what? Sakya ras. So there is sakya bhava. So while Raganuga Bhaktas are cultivating that mood and they are following the Ragatmika Bhaktas like Sridhama and Sudhama, so whatever that mood they are cultivating, whatever is favorable Bhavamai, that is their primary ras, that is Sakya. And related to that, which helps us to develop further that mood, that is called as bhava sambandhi. So these are not the five bhavas or five rasas. In each of these rasas, which are we are composed of, which is favorable, which is not favorable, that is how they choose. That is the point which is being discussed with respect to these five things: bhavamaya, bhava sambandhi, and bhava anukul, pratikul. And it is not viruddha, it is not viruddha, it is not it is not incompatible with the bhava. So that is the meaning here. I hope it is clear, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Now, we saw this. For example, 1 second, let me mute the participants, otherwise there will be some background noise. Then there are related practices not indispensable but favorable to bhava. One should accept these practices because they are complementary. For example, one should observe Ekadasi, celebrate Janmashtami, accept vows during the month of Kartik, renounce sense pleasure to give Krishna satisfaction, and worship Tulsi and the banyan tree. So these are, all related, and they should be. These are part of even sadhana bhakti also, in one sense. Then there are practices neither incompatible with nor favorable to cultivating bhav. So this is that neutral one. These practices are optional or neutral. Examples of this category are wearing the deity's flower garland or stamping the body with Lord's names. Now, just to give a hint, because we are discussing subjects which is which we have still not have any entrance or any idea, but the subject is part of sadhana bhakti, and we are discussing so that we practice Vaidhi sadhana bhakti more meticulously. So bhava anukul, let me explain, of the story of Andal. We all have heard about the 12, were called as the 12, in Sri Vaishnavas, they are called as the 12 Alvars. Yes, yes, the 12 Alvars. So among the 12 Alvars was Andal. Andal was a daughter of, I don't know the Alvar's name, Tirupayya or Tirupayya or somewhere, in that's a Tamil name. I don't recollect. Anyone knows who can chat, send it in the chat box. So she was the daughter of this Alvar, and the father had told her to make garlands for, Ranganath. Peri Alvar, yes, Peri Alvar. Yeah, many have answered Peri Alvar. So the father had told to make garlands for the, Ranganath, and she used to make the garlands, and she used to herself wear it. And after that, she used to give it to the father, and the father used to offer it. And the father never knew about it. But one day, you know, uh, her father saw, and he reprimanded, how can you, offer first to yourself, and, then offer your Mahaprasadam to Ranganath. So Alvar, reprimanded her. And that day night, Ranganath came in the dream of Peri Alvar, and I told that I accept her mood, her bhav, and that is, I like that, and that is why, don't, forbid her. So Andal was in a Gopi Bhav. Among the 12 Arvas, it is mentioned that she was the only one who was in Gopi Bhav. It is very rarely heard in Sri Sampradaya, but she was in Gopi Bhav, it is mentioned. So wearing the garland suited, it was anukul for her mood, to develop the mood of the Gopi, and that's why she was wearing it. And that is why that was Bhav anukul. So some might be neutral or it might be pratikul. So that a devotee himself, is very discriminative, and he understands because he's highly mature, and he does that. So that is what one example. I gave the opposite example, you know, for that Andal story. Finally, opposed to the spontaneous devotion of Vrindavan are practices such as meditating on the service of Krishna's queens in Dwarka. So this is completely bhav pratikul, or affixing the mantras, worshipping various deities on one's body. There are mudras and nyasyas, which are, part of Vaidi Aishwarya Bhakti, So that, one, they are bhav pratikul. So, devotees avoid it. Devotees cultivating bhav should avoid such practices. Now, a further note, especially in ISKCON scenario, Maharaj gives, before deciding which regulative practices to continue and which to drop, however, ISKCON devotees must first consider the example such behavior will set for newcomers. So they are very particular, especially, in ISKCON. Since new devotees are always joining the society, it is important that senior devotees encourage them by setting proper example. So a proper example has to be set. So they will be particular about following all the rules which are favorable for setting example for the new devotees, especially the Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. If leading devotees neglect practices required for novices, double standards in the society will result in confusion. So, maybe at a higher elevated practice in Raganuga Sadhana, a devotee can, it is anukul for him to sit in his own small kutir or in his room and keep the picture and meditate. And internally in meditation, he can also externally do chanting. It is favorable, but yet he will not do. He will go to the temple hall and sit with all the other devotees, brahmacharis, and the congregation and do his chanting to set up an example. So this is very important. Maharaj is mentioning. Lord Chaitanya's mercy is indispensable item for spontaneous practice, and that mercy showers down on those who selflessly serve his mission. Now, we will be discussing maybe in the next verse we all know now how glorious is the Raga Marg or Raganuga Bhakti, how elevated and lofty it is. But how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so merciful that within our practices of devotional service, how he has, given us this, most confidential devotional service, which is only available in Braj. How in all our external activities like Sankirtan, preaching, or book distribution, how we slowly attain Mahaprabhu's mercy and slowly will be guided into, this process of Raganuga Bhakti. We will be seeing that aspirants for Ragana Bhakti must carefully consider what is favorable for ISKCON and cultivate the spontaneous mood accordingly. This concludes the discussion on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1 to 96. So some additional points which Maharaj is mentioning, I went into a little detail because we need to know practically many things. So that's why I discussed. So any questions you have? Any questions, any clarifications? So the last part of today's discussion is now we will begin a new topic or a new theme today. We have discussed these 3 verses of practice of Raganuga Bhakti. Now, types of Raganuga Bhakti. Now, previous to discussing, the practice of Raganuga Bhakti, while Rupa Goswami was discussing, types of Ragatmika Bhakti, there is Kama Rupa Ragatmika Bhakti and Sambandha Rupa Ragatmika Bhakti. So there he had discussed that Raganuga Bhakti is also having 2 types. Kamanuga, following the Kama Rupa Ragatmika Bhakti, and Sambandhanuga. So this he had discussed in 1 verse. So we know that this Siddha Bhakti is Kama Rupa Ragatmika, that is especially the Madhuri Ras of the gopis, and Sambandha Rupa. Sambandha Rupa refers to, Vatsalya, Sakya, and Dasya. Based on these 2 types of Ragatmika Bhakti, there are 2 types of Raganuga Bhakti, that is Kamanuga and Sambandhanuga. Now there is further classification in this, Raganuga Bhakti. So that Rupa Goswami is going to explain elements of practice of Kamanuga Bhakti. So now he mentions in this verse. Now 296 we discussed. Now 297 to 298. 2 verses are here. Kamanuga bhave Trishna Kamarupanugamini Sambhogicchamai tad tad bhava icchatmeti sadvidha. That Raganuga sadhana bhakti, which is filled with longing, Trishna, intense deep longing, lobe, as we discussed, and which follows after Kama Rupa Ragatmika Bhakti of the Siddha Bhaktas, Kama Rupa Anugamini. Anugami means following in the Kama Rupa Ragatmika Bhaktas is called Kamanuga Bhakti, Kamanuga Bhavet. So this we have seen this definition. There are 2 types, Sadvidha, there are 2 types. Within Kamanuga, there are 2 types, Sambhog Icchamai and Tad Bhav Icchatma. So again, within this Kamanuga, there is this 2 types. So let us see that now. So we saw that there are these 2 types based on these 2 types of Ragatmika Bhakti, and within Kamanuga, there is this 2 types, Sambhog Icchamai and Tad Bhava Icchatma. So let us see now what is this Sambhog Icchamai and Tad Bhava Icchatma. Let us see what it is. Now Vishwanath Chakra Thakur is giving an explanation. That bhakti which exhibits an eagerness to follow after Kama Rupa Bhakti is called Kamanuga. This we know now by now definition. Because previously the word Kama Rup in relation to Siddha Bhakti was said to indicate activities inspired by conjugal prema, the word Trishna or thirst used in relation to sadhaka bhakta should also mean actions inspired by same type of prema. So Kama Rupa, with respect to Siddhas, when a sadhaka is attracted to that mood of Madhurya Ras, so there is Trishna in relation. So the sadhaka, in relation to that Siddhas, he also practices. So that is why it is the same type prema. And that means it is attraction to even only Madhurya Ras, only Madhuryas. So the Kamanugas are sadhakas who are attracted to Madhurya Ras. The Sambandhanugas are attracted to either of the three, either Vatsalya, Dasya, or Sakya. Let us see if that point is there. Thus, that bhakti which is filled with activities that follows in the footsteps of gopis' actions, which is inspired by prominent calm or conjugal prem within them, and which is inspired by a similar and prominent love thirst in the sadhaka, is called Kamanuga Bhakti. I explained this just now. There are two types of activity: those in the mind, consisting of thoughts, and services, consisting of actions of the external senses. So the activity is also internal emotions, mood or bhava, emotions, and then there are external actions also done. One should not say as follows. Okay, I don't want to, just a second, I'll just. Oh, I did not do the animation for this. Otherwise, while you might, while seeing, you might read the other statements just to avoid that. Okay. If it is prescribed that the sadhaka must perform activities following the activities of the young gopis, then why do the pure devotees not perform worship of sun, which is undertaken by the gopis? So the gopis, if we are supposed to follow the Anugami, the gopis also did worship of Surya Devata. Every afternoon, Srimati Radharani used to go from her mother-in-law's house, Jatila, but ultimately, Krishna would come to meet there. So why don't they take up these, activities of the gopis then? If we have to, sadhaka must perform, follow in their footsteps. If a devotee performs such actions, it will it harm the purity of their bhakti? The sadhaka also performs actions such as worship and Ekadashi vows, which were performed by Rupa Goswami and other great devotees. But the gopis did not perform these. So gopis did not follow Ekadasi. They did not do all these other activities which Rupa Goswami did in this world. The word Anugamini means following after, not imitating. One should follow after them in the sense of accepting the gopi sentiments. It does not mean one should do everything they do. So only those actions which are favorable, only those actions he should meditate internally. And externally, as we are discussing, Sadhak Rupena and Siddha Rupena. Sadhak Rupena means he should follow all the actions of Rupa Goswami and the great acharyas. In the Siddha Rupa, he meditates internally on the particular mood of particular, gopis, you can say. But he doesn't externally, perform the actions what gopis also did. That is not, imitation is not allowed. You have to follow. Similarly, taking the support of Vedanta, if one gives explanation with logic, with one's additional input, it is called following the Vedanta. So following the Vedanta. So he's giving Anugamini means what? As previously, the opinions of recent Sauramya Sampradaya are again defeated. So I explained in the last class, there was one deviation of one Rup Kaviraj, who was the disciple of Hemalata Thakurani during the time of Vishwanath Chakra Thakur. he said, the gopis did not follow, the Ekadasi, and they did not accept a spiritual master. So we also should not do all these activities. These are all external. So this became a deviation and called as a Saurami Sampradaya. And Vishwanath Chakra Thakur very much defeated him, this Rup Kaviraj, and he was expelled from Braj. And Vishwanath Chakra Thakur in his commentary is giving a very logical answer here. And even in the Bhagavatam commentary, and even in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and even in Ragvartma Chandrika, he has commented about this deviation. So after understanding that there are these elements of practice of Kamanuga, then let us come to these two types of Kamanuga Bhakti. At least now it is clear that within this elements of practice of Kamanuga Bhakti, there is, external practices which are following Rupa Goswami, internal practices, again, following the eternal associates, but following means not imitating their activities, following what is really favorable, which is compatible with the external practices. Like the gopis every day worshipped sun god. So if Raganuga Bhakta starts worshipping sun devata, then it will be not favorable to his attaining bhava bhakti. In fact, worship of any devatas, it will not be favorable. So we should not imitate the activities of Rajvasis. Secondly, the Vrajvasis did not do Ekadasi, did not accept a spiritual master. So if you also say I'm following the gopis and do that, then again it will be unfavorable for attaining perfection. So these are these two aspects which we discussed. Any questions regarding this? I hope this is clear. Okay, now we'll come to the two types of Kamanuga Bhakti. So there are two types of Kamanuga Bhakti. Let us see that. We saw this. Kamanuga has this Sambhoga Ichhamayi and Tat Bhava Ichhatma. So let us see what this Sambhoga Ichhamayi and Tat Bhava Ichhatma is. Rupa Goswami in the next verse of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu mentions Keli Tat Paryavateva Sambhog Ichhamavi Bhavet Tad Bhavichhatmika Tasam Bhava Madhurya Kamita. Sambhog Ichhamayi Bhakti is characterized, Sambhog Ichhamayi Bhavet, by enjoying congenially with Krishna. Keli Tat Parayatva Eva. Tad Bhav Ichatmika Bhakti is characterized, Tad Bhav Ichatmika, by desiring the sweet mood of love of the Kama Rupa Siddha devotees. Tasam Bhava Madhure Kamita. Now, what this means requires some explanation. And let us see what the Acharyas have to explain about these two. Subtle difference between Sambhog Ichhamayi and Tad Bhava Ichhatmika. Jiva Goswami. Sambhog Ichhamayi means following those who are Kama Prayas, have a prominence of a desire to give direct conjugal enjoyment to Krishna. Now here the term used Kama Praya has a different meaning. This use of the word Kama Praya is different from its use in describing Kubja, who had a predominance of material calm. So there are in the Madhuri Ras, in the gopis, some who desire to give direct enjoyment to Krishna. Tad Bhavi Chatmika means that type of bhakti whose very life, Atma, Atmika it is here, no? Bhava Icha Atmika, whose very life is the desire for a particular rati or a bhav of a cherished woman of Raj. This should be understood to be the main type of Kamanuga Bhakti. So within Kamanuga Bhakti, there is Sambhoga Ichhamayi and tad bhava ichatmika. And Jiva Goswami is saying the second one should be the main type of bhakti. That is the main type it is being mentioned. Now he is giving a reference. This is illustrated in the Bhagavatam. Now, I will go through this explanation both of Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakra Thakur and give you some practical understanding and explanation of what these two, bhaktis are in Kamanuga. That is Sambhog Ichamai and Tat Tat Bhav Ichatmaka. So kindly be patient. Let us go through the explanation and then I'll further give some examples. This is illustrated in the Bhagavatam. Striya Urgendra Bhoga Bhujadhanda Visaktodhyo Vayam Apite Sama Samadrisho Angri Saroja Sudha. This is again the personified Vedas, the Srutichars. They wanted a same mood. The woman of the arms of Krishna resembling the Lord of the Serpents. Urgendra Bhoga Bhujadhanda and attained the nectar of his lotus feet. Angri Saroja Sudha. We, now the Shrutis, personified Vedas, also with similar mood, Tat Tad Bhava Ichatmika, attaining similar bodies, attained their feet. Vayam apite sama samodrisho. So this is the example, the proof of how they also attain that same mood is being given from the Bhagavatam. Sambhoga means conjugal enjoyment. Keli means the same thing. So Keli and Sambhoga mean the same thing. Sambhoga Ichamai has the aim of conjugal enjoyment with Krishna. Keli tat parayavati. Sambhoga means the aim is for conjugal enjoyment with Krishna. Tat tad bhava ichatmika bhakti has a desire for the sweetness of the love of the woman of Raja. Tasam bhava madhuri kamita. So here in Sambhog Ichamai, those who are in Sambhog Ichamai, the gopis, they have a desire directly to give enjoyment to Krishna. But in Tat Tad Bhav Ichatmika Bhakti, the desire is to attain that very similar mood of some gopi, and there is no direct, conjugal enjoyment with Krishna. They just want to attain or relish that same mood, of that gopi. That is the difference. Now, Vishwanath Chakra Thakur is giving his commentary. Sambhog Icha means bhakti consisting of two types of activities, mental and physical, inspired by the desire for a direct experience of conjugal enjoyment to Krishna independently, like a leader of a group of gopis. An example of a leader of a group, according to the scriptures, is Chandravali. So, in the spiritual world, just to give a hint, there is politics even in the spiritual world, spiritual politics. So there is something called as the left wing and the right wing. So we also know in our politics in India, there is that left wing. So there is a left wing and the right wing. And the right wing is, headed by Chandravali, as far as I remember, and the left wing is headed by Srimati Radharani. So there are some who are in the right wing, the associates headed by Chandravali, who directly want to experience and give conjugal enjoyment to Krishna independently. So this mood of the gopis is called as Sambhoga Ichamai. From the word only, it is very clear, Sambhoga. Tad bhav ichatmika means bhakti whose inspiration, Atma, the Atma itself, is the desire to taste the special bhava in relation to Krishna possessed by a particular woman of Raja whom one holds dear. So in this Tat Tad Bhav Ichatmika, the gopis hold particular mood of a woman of Raja, and they relish that mood. So there is no direct, giving enjoyment to Krishna, but they relish that mood. So that is called as Tat Tad Bhava Ichhatmika. This should be understood to be superior to the previous type. Now, for conditioned souls in this material world, you know, it is very difficult to fathom. But let me give you an example. The father in the family maintains the family, the wife and the children, and he works very hard. And when he comes back to the family, the wife cooks nice food and feeds the children. Although he might come back from work and he's tired and he's hungry, but seeing the children being nicely fed, he relishes a higher kind of happiness. Although he himself is hungry and he himself is tired, but seeing his own children being nicely fed and they're relishing the food, he gets a higher enjoyment in that mood just by seeing that. Although he himself has not directly eaten the food now, we can say prasad here in relation. So although he has not directly had it and relishing the food and to get the energy, because he is himself maintaining family, but he gets a higher relish seeing his children, attaining happiness in taking the food. So similarly in the spiritual world, especially I'll come to that example after this discussion of Vishwanath Chakravarti. In this verse, Sambhoga means conjugal union and Keli is the same thing. Action whose goal is Keli with Krishna is called Sambhoga Ichha Mai Kamanuga Bhakti. So actions where there is direct conjugal enjoyment for Krishna, that is called as Sambhoga Ichha Mai. That bhakti which has a desire to taste the sweetness of the gopis' love in relation to Krishna is called Tat Tad Bhava Ichhatmika Bhakti. So this is the second type, which I was giving that example of the father who is relishing, the children having nourishing food and children enjoying the food. So there is a higher relish he experiences there. So this is superior, the second one, Tat Tat Bhav Ichhatmika. And this is the mood of the Manjaris. In Radha Krishna pastimes, the Nayaka means the hero, is Krishna, and the Nayika is Srimati Radharani. Srimati Radharani. And Srimati Radharani is assisted by the Sakis who are of similar age, who assist Srimati Radharani. But below the Sakis are the assistants called as the Manjaris, who are younger in age, and Rup Manjari is one. So the Sakis also sometimes give direct conjugal love to Krishna. They experience conjugal love. But the Manjaris don't directly unite with Krishna. And they relish the mood of especially Srimati Radharani. So they serve Srimati Radharani and they relish her sweet loving mood with Krishna, and they experience a higher happiness in that. And that is what is called as Tat Tat Bhav Ichhatmika Bhakti. So this is superior. Even in the material world, as I was explaining, that the husband, the head of the family, although he works very hard and he sees his family is nicely fed and he sees his children being fed, although he's hungry, but he's getting a higher happiness in that. So this, the Manjaris, in fact, are younger to the Sakis, and they intimately assist Radha Krishna's, I make arrangement for Radha Krishna's pastimes, and they, in fact, are able to witness these pastimes also, which even the Sakis are not allowed to witness, because the Sakis have a mood also to independently enjoy with Krishna, give conjugal pleasure to Krishna. So even the Sakis are not allowed, but the Manjaris, they have this mood to, relish a particular mood of the Vraj and they experience higher pleasure in that. So this is Tat Tad Bhava Ichatmika Kamanuga Bhakti. So we saw these two types of Raganuga, Madhurya Bhav. There is Sambhog Ichamai, characterized by enjoying conjugally with Krishna, and Tat Tad Bhav Ichatmika Bhakti, characterized by desiring the sweet mood of love of the Kamarupa Siddha devotees. So here, just to summarize, we have seen this very beautiful picture of the Vihar, boat Vihar pastimes, and Radha and Krishna there, and especially the Manjaris, they directly don't unite with Krishna, give conjugal direct pleasure to Krishna, but they relish the sentiments of a particular gopi. Here it is Srimati Radharani, and they arrange for their wonderful pastimes like doing intimate services, singing. Here you can see the singing, and here some of the gopis are picking up, making garlands. So this is the kind of mood, and this is very, very exalted and very, very pure mood. And only, in these elevated stages, we can understand these subjects. But how fortunate we are that our Vaishnava Acharyas in our Vaishnava bhajans, right, even in sadhaka stage, in practicing stages, in their bhajans, Radha Krishna Pranamura Yugala Kishore Jivane Marane Nahi Gati. Oh, I don't recollect the bhajan. So Radha Krishna Pranamura Yugala Kishore, So Narottam Das Thakur is just giving the hints or glimpse of these pastimes and how, we can just singing these bhajans, get a glimpse of what this, sweet leelas, what Krishna does. And by practicing this Vaidhi Bhakti, we can swiftly, purify our heart and enter into this realm of Raganuga Bhakti. So here I just gave this just hint of what is this Tat Tad Bhava Ichatmika, and compared to Sambhoga Icha Mai. And especially Chandravali's group, especially Chandravali has a desire to always unite with Krishna, give pleasure to Krishna. So that is Sambhog Ichamai. But Tat Tad Bhav Ichatmai is especially the Manjaris who participate in Radha Krishna's intimate pastimes, and they don't, directly give enjoyment to Krishna, but they emulate the mood of a special gopi. It is Srimati Radharani, especially in, what Mahaprabhu has come to give us. I'll give you another practical example from the Chaitanya Charitamrita to explain this Manjari Bhav mood, which is the Tat Tad Bhav Ichatmika. We all know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, once he was going with his associates, this is there in Chaitanya Charitamrita description, that he suddenly saw the ocean, the blue ocean, and remembered Yamuna, and he saw a sand dune because there was huge wind, there was a sand dune, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, seeing the sand dune, he thought it is Govardhan, and he just rushed. He ran so swiftly that nobody could catch him, and he just went and collapsed there. And he lost his external consciousness. He had gone deep into his internal consciousness. Sarup Damodar and all the devotees had to do intense kirtan of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came back to semi-consciousness and came back to external consciousness. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started lamenting, why did you do this to me? I was, in the Govardhan caves, I saw Radha and Krishna going, and I, was preparing the garlands to be offered to Radha and Krishna. And when I was internally in this mood, suddenly I heard this Hare Krishna Mahamantra Kirtan. Why did you get me back here when I was absorbed there in Govardhan? Doing this wonderful seva of, making beautiful garlands for the pleasure of Radha and Krishna. So this is the mood of the Manjari Bhav, what is called as the Manjari Bhav. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, although he relished the Radha Bhava, sometimes he also exhibited the mood of Manjari Bhav. And this is there in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and in other also instances, Kaviraj Goswami is taking this. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he had gone into this internal consciousness, he explains how he saw Radha and Krishna going in one of the caves, and he was assisting Srimati Radharani in making the garlands, and he was relishing that bhav, that mood, that sweet moods. Tat tat bhava ichatmika. So this is what is called as the Manjari Bhav, and this is Unnata Ujjvala Rasa. It is the topmost rasa, and this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to give. Such a lofty thing for the most fallen conditioned souls of Kali Yuga. And this all slowly understanding and experiencing this all will happen just by the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Just by chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was to come to this external consciousness. So the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is the means for us to enter into Vraj Bhakti. Any questions, any clarifications you have? There is one question here. Could we conclude that Tat Tat Bhav Ichatmika is higher than Sambhog Ichamai? Examples, Kubja's Sambhog Bhav. Now again, we had given the footnote. Kubja's, prema, it is not prema, it is, it is not classified. Kubja's prema, very clearly, Rupa Goswami, we discussed that verse. Kama Praya it is called, and there Kama Praya means that has a different context there. We saw that verse. Let me see. We discussed that verse very clearly. Because Kubja is not in the mood of following the Vrajvasis. Kubja is not a Raganuga Sadnaka or a Ragatmika. She is not a Ragatmika Bhakta. Only the gopis of Vrindavan are Ragatmika Bhaktas, and the Sakas, Dasyas, and the parental moods of Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, they are Ragatmika Bhaktas. Whereas Kubja is not considered as a Ragatmika Bhakti. Her Bhakti is not considered as Ragatmika Bhakti. It is, Kama Praya there it is called. And Kama Praya means she wanted to have conjugal enjoyment, but, it was motivated by Kama. So that is different. But here, where Rupa Goswami is mentioning, here he is clarified that the Sambhog Ichamai, there is a desire to directly give enjoyment, conjugal love to Krishna. Whereas in Tat Tat Bhava, it is not so. So that is the subtle difference between the two. I hope it is clear between the two. Any other questions? There is one question. Prashant Shanbag Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Is there any difference between the Tad Bhava? They are following one of the direct associate that devotees and Sambhogamai devotee. Is there any difference? Not the followers, the whom they are following.
You're speaking about the Raganuga sadhakas, or you're speaking about the siddhas in the spiritual world?
The two types you are now mentioning, that
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's the second type, which is
Tad
better.
bhava ichatmika.
Yes, yeah, that bhava ichatmika. They are following. They want to be in the mood of one particular gopi.
Correct.
Okay, now that gopi's mood and Sambhoga Ichamai Gopi mood, is there any difference, or is it same?
Oh, yes. Good question, and a very clear question now. I got the question. So, tad bhav ichatmika, refers to the mood where, especially the manjaris, who directly don't, give conjugal love to Krishna. So, following this mood, the Raganuga sadhakas follow this mood of Tat Bhav Ichatmika. So they will follow, Rupa Goswami, and that is Rupa Manjari. But those, practicing sadhakas who have Sambhog Ichamai, then they'll have to follow the other gopis, like those who are on the right wing, that is Chandravali and other Sakhis. So that is possible, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who has come, he has specially come to give us that Unnat Ujjvala Ras. Among all the four rasas, the conjugal is the topmost, and within the conjugal is, this mood, the Manjari Bhav, as I was explaining. So this is what is the meaning of Unnat Ujjvala Ras. So this is what he has come to give. And this line is, in the line of Rupa Manjari. Rupa Manjari is the Acharya in the spiritual world, and here Rupa Goswami is the Acharya. And that is why we are called as Rupanugas. And that is why you see all the Acharyas in our Guru Shish Parampara. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is Pranam Mantra is Namo Bhaktoi Vinodaya Satchidananda Namine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate. He was the best among the followers of Rupa Goswami. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's Pranam Mantra, Sri Rupa Apasiddhanta Dvanta Harine. He was an expert follower of Rupa Goswami, and all the other misconceptions, he smashed them and established the teachings of Rupa Goswami. Right in the Nectar of Instruction, Prabhupada says the Krishna conscious movement is conducted under the supervision of Rupa Goswami. So this is the line which is now, we are connected to, and this is what is accessible to us now. So there can be different moods. It's not that, there can be Dasya mood, there can be Vatsalya, there can be Sakya, and within Madhurya, there is these two divisions we saw in Kamanuga, Sambhog Ichamai and Tat Bhava Ichatmika. But Tat Bhav Ichatmika is, what is prominent, available, or that is the line which, we are connected to, that is Rupa Goswami. That's why all the acharyas, glorify Rupa Goswami, pray to Rupa Goswami, and that is how we are followers of Rupa Goswami. And that's why we read Rupa Goswami's books like the Updeshamrit and the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. Is it clear?
So, see, I'll put it in other way. Suppose Rupa Manjari is following the Radharani. Okay. Now, if we say Radharani's and other Sambhogamai, Sambhoga Ichamai, this thing is different, little different. Yeah, but suppose some other Manjari who is, let's say, in following some other, what do you say, the gopi, who is not directly union with Krishna, but she is following the other gopi who is directly associating or union with Krishna. Now that gopis and the Sambhoga Ichamai gopis? Is there any difference or it is same?
I'm not getting clearly your question, Prabhuji.
Okay. Now, Rupa Manjari is it follows, Radharani, right?
In fact, they directly don't, give conjugal love to Krishna, but they experience that mood, what they have, what the other gopis have, and especially now I'm taking the example of Radharani.
Yeah.
And it is definitely Radharani. So
Yeah.
they experience that mood and they are experiencing higher happiness in that.
Correct.
So that is the tat tat bhava ichatmika.
Correct. Now, there could be somebody other than Radharani also, right?
Okay.
And that gopis bhav and the Sambhoga Ichamai gopis bhav, is there
Now,
any difference?
yeah, see, when it comes to these topics, especially trying to understand, in the spiritual reality, it becomes difficult. But let me again put it a little more simpler, that the Sakis, the Ashta Sakis which are there, they are of similar age of Srimati Radharani. And in fact, they have that Sambhog Ichamai, mood, and especially the left wing, I said directly, Chandravali name, which Vishwanath Chakravarti mentions. So when they are in that mood, if somebody is following in that mood, then they will join that group. They will be connected to that group. But the Manjaris who assist the Sakis and the Manjaris who are having access to Radha Krishna's pastimes, they don't directly unite with Krishna, but they, experience that bhava and they get higher pleasure and they do services following their mood and they get higher pleasure in that. So that is tat tat bhav ichatmika, and there, those who follow that mood, they will join to that group. That is how we have to understand it.
I got it. Hare Krishna.
Ashray Prabhu has one question. Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam. Prabhuji, this question is from my wife. She will. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam.
Yes, Mataji.
Prabhuji, what I want to understand, that suppose one is following this Gaudiya Vaishnav cult in this birth, and somehow or some reason one is not able to complete, and like Krishna says in 2.40, Neha Abhikram Nasho Asti. So Krishna says that I preserve the devotional service. So would it be that in the next birth also one will come in contact with the Gaudiya Vaishnav cult and one can practice Raga Nuga Bhakti? So is it preserved that way also?
Yes, definitely. There is no doubt about it. Somebody who has, practiced, especially in this line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Madhavendra Puri coming down to Ishwar Puri and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and through the 6 Goswamis, especially the 6 Goswamis, coming this is line. If somebody has practiced the Raganuga Bhakti or even Vaidhi Bhakti, he will come in touch in this next life with that same, this, and he will continue there. Now, what to speak of that, even if somebody is from other sampradayas and, from other sampradayas, if he comes in touch with this, science of Bhakti Ras, he might, change, shift to this sampradaya. And the classic example is of Baldev Vidyabhushan, a great acharya in our sampradaya. Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan, was, studied in Sanskrit. He was a scholar right from his childhood, and he was a Madhva, sannyasi. He was in the renounced order of the Madhva Sannyas order. And in fact, after taking sannyas in the Madhva Sampradaya, being connected with the Madhva Sampradaya, he went on a preaching tour. And while he was on a preaching tour in Jagannath Puri, he came in touch with another sannyasi who was from the Gaudiya Sampradaya. And Madhvas are scholarly and highly philosophical. So Baldev Vidyabhushan was having a conversation with the Gaudiya sannyasi, and he found the Gaudiya Siddhant highly philosophical, especially of the Jiva Goswami's teachings, and he got attracted to it, and the science of rasa was introduced to him. Only the science of rasa is being introduced in this bhakti cult of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he got attracted, and he told, I don't recollect the sannyasi's name, I think it is Pitambar Chaitanya, I don't recollect. So I want to, practice this, this devotion where bhakti filled with rasa. So Pitambar Chaitanya said, you are already initiated in the Madhva Sampradaya, and you can directly get connected. You need not take another reinitiation. But if you want to study this science, go to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So Baldev Vidyabhushan first went to Navdeep and visited the places of Mahaprabhu, and then he came to Vrindavan and took shelter of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. In fact, he became, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur became his Shiksha Guru, because Diksha had already taken in the Madhu Sampradaya. And he studied the entire science of rasa from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur by studying his Bhagavatam and all the commentaries, what he had written. So that's how Baldev Vidyabhushan, who was from a Madhu Sampradaya where the science of rasa is, not there, of these, Vaikuntha rasa is only there. The higher, sweet mood of rasa, of sweet and intimate, spontaneous devotion, which is there in Golok, is not there. And Baldev Vidyabhushan got connected. So definitely there is no doubt somebody was come in touch, he will, continue. There is no doubt about it. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Satisfactory?
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Sankarshan Ro Prabhuji, Sanoj Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Prabhuji, actually, when we discuss about this Leelas of Krishna, we discuss with, he means his Leela with Radharani, Lalita, Vishakha, and not Chandravali. Why is it so, Prabhuji?
Firstly, I'm not able to understand where do we discuss, Radha Krishna's Leelas with, Lalita, Vishakha and all. Nowhere in the Bhagavatam we find these pastimes. In fact, we, at least as of now, we study the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto after we have studied the first 9 cantos, after we have assimilated the teachings, as Prabhupada says. And we are trying to just, relish what is Braj Ras. We are at that stage. We don't have, any taste for what is really Braj Ras or Braj Bhakti, So we are trying to come to that stage where we can develop some, taste for studying Srimad Bhagavatam, especially the first 9 cantos, and coming then to 10th canto. So nowhere in the Bhagavatam, in the 10th canto at least, we hear these kind of pastimes. And I would recommend devotees, not to also, if you have some sources, not to discuss also about this. Best is to hear, the pastimes which are given in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and hear from sannyasis who are very good in narrating these pastimes, like Radha Govind Maharaj gives wonderful classes, philosophical and sweet narrations of these pastimes. Many sannyasis are there whom we can hear and develop some appreciation for, Vraj Bhakti. But all these other things, it's not recommended, I feel, in the sadhaka stage for us to, know this. In fact, it's not recommended much, even in what to speak, even to read such literatures, like Prabhupada is very, very clear about, as long as, one is not liberated, one should not read these books. Now in ISKCON, one of the biggest problems is all the Acharya's books, commentaries are available in our ISKCON stores in Mayapur, Vrindavan. And whether we should have Adhikar. Prabhupada said, Govind Lilamrit, and Krishna Karnamrit, all these books are meant for liberated souls, Prabhupada said. Those who are liberated. Nigama kalpataror ghalitam phalam, shukamukad amrita dravya samhitam, pibat bhagavatam rasamalayam, muhur aho rasika bhuvi bhavaka. So in this third verse of the first canto, first chapter, alayam means those who are liberated. Only the rasikas are able to relish that rasa. So we are caught up in mundane rasa of this material world. How we can relish the rasa of Vrindavan? So for that, we have to progressively go through these stages of realizations from the second, third canto and actually become a self-realized soul. And, by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, spiritual master's mercy, we might enter into the realm of Raganuga Bhakti at the stage of Nishtha, and slowly this internal mood develops. And only one who is liberated, can actually understand these pastimes. Even if the mind is having a slightest tinge of any material desire, reading these literatures will not purify us, but it will contaminate us. Srila Prabhupada, what to speak about, all these other books? Srila Prabhupada said, Vraj Bhakti is meant for those who are already purified, and, there is qualification. You should be at least above Nishtha to hear even Vraj Bhakti of Krishna's pastimes. But we are fortunate in one sense, because sometimes when sannyasis speak and we go to the Dham, Krishna's holy abode, Vrindavan, Mayapur, we hear these wonderful pastimes and we develop some genuine appreciation. But especially Chaitanya Leela, there is no such restriction. Chaitanya Leela we can hear. And Chaitanya Leela is non-different from, Krishna Leela in one sense. So in that sense, through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, we can quickly get purified and enter into, understanding the Vraja mood. In fact, we can only have the understanding of Radha Krishna only by going through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that is very important for us to understand. Is it okay and satisfactory to you, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhuji. It means, Prabhuji, we should not even go to this Garg Samhita and all, where detailed descriptions are there. We should focus on Bhagavatam. Is it so, Prabhuji?
Now, let me tell you something about Garga Samhita. Now, I don't know, when we have Srimad Bhagavatam, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself says is, Aradhya Bhagavan Vrajetanes. For us, worshipable Lord is not Dwarka Krishna, Mathura Krishna, but it is son of Nand Maharaj, Shyam Sundar Krishna. And for us, even to think about any other abode except Vrindavan is, it's not worth it. Tad Dhama Vrindavanam. And worship, how should we worship? Ramya Kachita Upasana, Vrajvadu. Just like the Vrajvadus, And where is the Praman? Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam. Prema Pumarto Mahan. And what is the goal? Ultimately, Krishna Prem, the topmost again. And who is giving this opinion? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matamidam. So we have the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the Srimad Bhagavatam is the Chakravarti Samrat. It is the emperor among all Puranas, and it is Amal Puran. And the whole purpose of the Bhagavatam is ultimately the 10th canto, but preparation is from 1st to 9th cantos. Now regarding Garg Samhita is written by Garg Muni. Garg Muni did the Namkaran of Krishna and Balram, and is explaining how these are avatars of Krishna. So he has Aishwarya knowledge about Krishna. So when he is explaining the pastimes in Garg Samhita, the pastimes are, not from the, Vrindavan perspective, but from the Aishwarya perspective through the lens of Garg Muni. So, we should be very, very, selective about these things. That is why I was explaining even Dwarka Leela, how we can see from Vrindavan perspective by reading Gopal Champu. Gopal Champu, describes the Dwarka pastimes, but how the Vrajvasis see these pastimes, they see it from pure Madhurya point. They don't consider Krishna as Bhagwan, even when they are hearing Dwarka pastimes. So definitely we should read the Srimad Bhagavatam, all the 90 chapters. As we finish the first 9 cantos, we should read Krishna book. But later on, if you read Gopal Champu, you can still relish, Krishna's pastimes. So, if you have some specific purpose to read the Garg Samhita, yes, we should read. From what purpose? There is 2 types of pastimes which are mentioned. One is called as the Nitya Leela and the Naimittik Leela. So the Naimittik Leelas are the pastimes which Krishna does only on this Bhauma planet, that is killing of the Asuras. In the spiritual world, there is no killing of Asuras happens. So these Asuras represent specific anarthas. And who are these Asuras? In the Garg Samhita, there is some description. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his books like Chaitanya Shikshamrita and other books, he has specifically done a lot of analysis of who these Asuras and what these Anarthas represent. So our purpose should be more to read the Naimittik Leelas rather than the Nitya Leelas. The Nitya Leelas which Krishna performs. The Naimittik Leelas are more important because by reading those Naimittik Leelas, our heart will get purified of Anarth Nivritti and we can go to the higher stages of Nishtha. So Srila Prabhupada has given a wonderful combination in form of Krishna book for even sadhakas, because ultimately, Prabhupada has also come to give us that, but he has done it in a very, very, strategic and systematic way. Is it okay, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Now it is very clear.
Thank you very much. So there is some other question. So I'll not take up this question. Any other question you have? Any other question any other devotees have? So in the next 2 classes, we will be finishing the remaining verses of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. There are only another 7-8 verses. And after we finish discussing the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu verses, there is one presentation of how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has, come to give us this highest, Unnata Ujjvala Ras, and how it is accessible by our simple practices, what we are doing in ISKCON, like Nam Sankirtan, book distribution, and how we can attain the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And by attaining the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with sincerity and with purification of heart, how, slowly, with Srila Prabhupada's mission, how we can attain this highest perfection of life. It's a small few slides, which is again from Shivaram Swami Maharaj book, which we will be discussing, and that will finish our discussion on exploring Raganuga Bhakti. Of course, there is still a lot topics with respect to Raganuga Bhakti, which purposefully I have not touched, because they are not required as for us as of now, I felt. And that is why I did not discuss quite in detail, meticulously, like the Siddha Deha, the Siddha Deha controversy, Siddha Pranali, all these topics, and the Antarpata and the Bhahyapata, the internal path I just yesterday mentioned. The internal path is what Raghunath Das Goswami has given us, where the purification of the heart happens by becoming free from the Anarth Nivritti. And the Bhahyapata, I did not go more in detail. So these were some other topics which are also a little elaborate. It takes few sessions to discuss. I did not feel it relevant, so I did not discuss. But we covered essentially the main topics, what is given in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu and Shivram Swami Maharaj work, and a little bit from Ragvartma Chandrika, which are essential for us to know. Thank you very much. Sorry, we were a little late today because there were some question and answers. So that's why I found it relevant to take it. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Rupa Goswami Pad ki jai. Hare Krishna.